Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Chevra.
Good morning.
Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam. We are starting Hilchos, Chovel, Umazik laws pertaining to both injury and damages. The Rambam writes, Mitzvas asei achas, v'hi din Chovel b'chaveroi, oy mazik mamin chaveroi. No, these are 2 separate categories. We have both the law of what were to happen if a person injures his colleague and if we damage his properties. This is the one positive commandment, and we're going to start with the first of the 3. We're going to be learning today Parakim Aleph Beis Gimel. Perek Rishon is going to lay out the 5 categories of financial restitution, as we should be all familiar with, right? Nezek, Tsar, Ripui, Sheves, and Boishes. Perek Rishon has 19 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. HaChovel b'chaveroi. When a person injures his chaver, we're not speaking about injuring or damaging property. We're speaking about one person hurting, injuring another person. The max that one will be chayiv to pay, this could arouse a chiyuv of chamisha devarim, of the following 5. Nezek, damage, as we'll define and explain how we monetize that. Tsar, pain. Ripui, the medical treatment. Shevis means the loss of employment. Uboishes and embarrassment. The chamisha devarim elu, kula mishtalmin min hayafash benachasav. Right, you have to be paid if you collected from a metaltal, and as we learned before, then you collect it from any metaltal. The moment a person says ainli, and you're going to his landed property, you collected from the best quality, as is the laws of mazikin, as is the laws regarding all damages. Halacha beis. So nezek. Ketzad, how do you assess the damage? For example, she'im kata yad chavedo eragloim. If one person cut off the hand or the leg of the other, we have to make the evaluation. If you would have been a slave being sold in the market, how much was he worth prior to this injury? And now and that difference has to be paid. And this is based on a pasuk shenamar. The Rambam is quoting a pasuk in Mishpatim. The Rambam is quoting the same pasuk we have in Parshas Emor. Ayin tachas ayin, an eye for an eye. And the Piyash Molandu shezeh shenamar tachas doesn't mean that mamish kipshuta eye for an eye, but it means l'shalom mamino, means to pay the value, the assessed damage for the eye that was lost. You have a very good word. They say it in the name of the Gra, that if you take the letters ayin Yud Nun, you take the next letter. After Ayin comes Pei, after Yud comes Chaf, after Nun comes Samach. These are the letters of Kesef. In other words, the Tachas Ayin, that which goes under the letters of Ayin, is the value, the Kesef for the Ayin. Halacha Gimel. When it says in Parshas Emor that Kasher Yitein Mum Ba'adam Ken Yinosen Ba'im, just as he caused an injury to his fellow, so should an injury be caused to him. Again, it sounds, the literal translation of these words is that if Reuven injures Shimon, so then Reuven should be injured. Says the Rambam, that's not what it means. That he deserves he deserves to lose a limb. He deserves he deserves to have what he did happen back to him. But how do you resolve that? You pay for the injury. But it's a monetary penalty. And he quotes a pasuk in Parshas Masei that that when a person, God forbid, is a reitzayach, don't accept a ransom for that. You don't take kaifer for that. And that implies that only for murder is not resolved with a financial penalty. Actually, the Torah is really implying anything less than murder, even though it's a bodily injury, or many bodily injuries, then yes, kaifer. In other words, you resolve it by financial restitution. When it says going back to a pasuk in Shoftim, that don't have compassion What does that mean? Don't have compassion? Not don't have compassion. And like he removed an eye, remove an eye. No. When it comes to the penalty of payment, for that don't have rachmanas. Shema Tlemer, because where would rachmanas come in? Maybe the guy who did the damage is an oni. And on top of that, and as we mentioned, and as we'll see more now, that when it comes to a man injuring his fellow, right, it's not that significant whether it was done on purpose or by accident. He's going to have to pay. And therefore, one might have thought, arachmenu, that's why the Torah says, loy, sochois, einechom, and not, people will say, rachmanas means that you have to injure eye for an eye. Taking out a person's eye, you might have rachmanas. The Torah says, don't have rachmanas. That's not what it means. Rachmanas is also when a person has to pay money that they don't have for something that they did without mamash mezid. They're shaykh to have rachmanas, for which the Torah has to says, furthermore, halacha hey, when the Torah uses this expression, ayin tachasayin, like we mentioned, mishpatim and parshas emor, how do you know that it means tashlumin? How do you know that it means financial restitution? Now, really, the whole Torah, how do we know? We know it from Torah Shabbat Peh. The Rambam is writing that even the way Hashem wrote the Torah, we can already come on our own to that understanding. Because since it says chabura tachas chabura, also over there in Mishpatim, a blow for a blow. Ubepeirush nemar, and the Torah writes that that if a person strikes his fellow with a stone or with a fist, right, only pay for his loss of unemployment. No, it's there we have in one place that the Torah is writing clearly that the punishment for striking your fellow is not to be stricken back. The Torah writes, "Befeidos, give money." So since when the Torah writes the words "a blow for a blow," chabura tachas chabura, the Torah writes explicitly that it doesn't mean a blow for a blow. Elamat means restitution, so that sheds light. Huadin to any other tachas, when it says like ayin tachas ayin, it also means financial restitution and not the literal an eye for an eye. Now the Rambam writes in halacha afapi shadvarim ha'elu nidin me'inyan ha'Torah shebachsav. Even though the Rambam, as he just proved in halacha, says that you can see from the Torah shebachsav that chabura tachas chabura means finances, not literal. Kulam mifurashin hey mipi Moshe Rabbeinu mipi Moshe Mahar Sinai. Really, this was what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu. And v'chulan halacha l'maisa ein biyodeinu. And v'chazero yavuseinu that are done in the Beis Din shel Yeshua, Beis Din shel Shmuel Aramasi, v'chol Beis Din or Beis Din shel Amdu miyais Moshe v'ad achshav. That what? That's the way they apply it, and not that we need to have the clear indication from Chabura Tachas Chabura. Nevertheless, the Rambam made an effort to write that even from the written Torah, like the Baram Shatznukim Moedin, where they should have been Moedin, is that the whole verbiage that the Torah uses is not to be taken literally. Okay, so Atkan, we spoke about the first of the damages, which is called Nezek, and the Rambam already wrote in the beginning the formula that how do you assess the damage? Well, you have to have slave markets, you have to know how much the person was worth prior to and post this injury. Halacha Zayin. Now let's go further. And in addition to the Nezek, you are also chayiv to pay tsar, you have to pay for pain, and that's a separate payment. Because when it says in Parshas Ki Seitzei, in the parsha of rape by an oinus, that tachas asher inam, and because he afflicted her, in other words, physically, right? It's not she didn't cut off her arm. The whole violation of rape is not something that you can see with your eye. It's for the pain that you caused. So this is very important, and not that my animal caused you pain, which is different. There, when something that I'm responsible for does damage, all I have to pay for is the nezek. It's unique by Adam that does the injury. He is chayiv not only for nezek. We're beginning with the tzar. Shu chayiv l'shalem demei hatzar givaldik. And I'll tell you more than that. The fact that you have two parshas in the Torah, one of Ma'anis and one of Mafata. And by Ma'anis, there's the additional Knas. The only difference between Ma'anis and Mafata is the tsar aspect, the emotional aspect, the violation aspect. And not when people can argue, no, that the Torah is mechayev to pay for Ma'anis because a person might have, so to say, somehow of less value. Get married, you want to marry a psula, there'll be less a dowry, there'll be less money getting into no. There's ma'anas and mafata. From mafata, you have to pay for the fact that you made her into a non-psula. The din of an oinus, that's the source where we see that the Torah penalizes finances for tzar. And b'chlal, it's good to note that we're living in a society that emotional distress. I'm not saying it's a real thing. People have emotional distress. But if you want to know in the Torah, there are two chiyuvim that you pay for something that's not tangible, and that is tsar and boishes. And other
not emotional damages, right?
I'm sorry?
Dafka not emotional stress. That's not called a tsar, according to the term, right?
Why not? We'll see later. No, there is, just to say, I know what Rabbi Tower says. I think it's tsar and boishes. You can't take away. We'll see soon. Tsar means emotional. Tsar means that.
I think it's physical pain.
No, physical pain is not something discernible. Everyone who is in pain says they're in physical pain.
But the Yudov never with Dafka said that we're not addressing
Who says? I know. Now I'm learning. It's tsar. So then he's saying tsar is from the physical.
Right.
We can discuss that. There's the physical loss which you pay nezek, and then the pain of it.
If I punch you, I inflicted physical pain. That's different than an emotional state.
Okay, could be. We'll get back to that there. Weiter. Halacha ches.
I'm just remembering.
I know. Good. Uminayin shuchayi, just to be open every time you learn to see something new. Uminayin shuchayi b'sheves b'fnei atzmam, independent of the first two. Now we're going into sheves and ripui. I just want to lahoy that when the Rambam, when he goes through the five, it was nezek, tsar, the say that ripui, sheves, and boishes. Here, the Rambam does it on occasion, and it's for a reason. It's not random. That the Rambam just writes the word sheves before ripui out of the Seder that he wrote in the beginning. Anyways, I don't know why, but he does that over here. Shenemar, because when it says in Mishpatim, rakshifto yitoin, and here the Torah say that it's sheves first. Maybe that's why. Ve'rapo yirape. So clear, you have to pay both for the unemployment and for the medical treatment or the medical expenses, as we'll see details in today's chapters. Halacha 9. This is the fifth. Because regarding a woman to protect her husband from someone who's attacking him. So it says that she grabbed his private parts, and the Torah writes the words, cut her hand off. And again, I read already that Rambam doesn't have to repeat. None of this is to be taken literally. The is the knas for Mavayish. Then here also, the Mavayish happened through a physical aggression. And we're going to see, it's not about the physical aggression part. If you Mavayish someone without physically, I'm saying what you're saying regarding tzad. If I shame someone else, God forbid, without physically touching them, the example the Torah gives is all physical. She grabbed his private parts. Okay, we'll come back to that. Halacha. Now, guys, this is going to be very important to halk up over here. I know people say that Adam is chayiv always. Adam muat la'olam. Now let's break it down into details. It's nishazay pash. For boishes, you have to have intent to a shame. Shenamar, as it says, v'sholcha yoda, not by accident. There was an intentional action that she did that also has in its shame. Then you won't be high for this fifth category, and therefore a person who's sleeping, if he ashamed his fellow, even though we'll see so nevertheless for boishes he'll be exempt. Now let's get into this thing. Muad means, in contrast to when my animal does damages, where you have a tam and a muad, which means sometimes if the animal did something that's unusual for the animal, at least for the first 3 times, you're only going to pay part damage. There's no such a thing by an other. Number 2, Not only is he always a muad, but this is even if it was a shoygig, bein mezid, bein aid, whether he was awake, bein yashon, whether he was sleeping, even if he was drunk. And note that Rambam doesn't write the oinus. We're going to get to that in a moment. In other words, there is a certain point where it was such a freak accident. We'll see the chiyuvim how that changes. But generally, we don't say that. You're mazid, you're shoygig, im chaval b'chaveiroi. Or if he was mazik mama in chaveiroi, the person did it. Shalom in hayafa shebenachasav. What the Rambam means in the beginning of Allah Yud Aleph to write about nezek. Nezek is always going to be played. There has to be, we'll see, some level of negligence. So what does that mean? For example, two people went to sleep together. Each one was aware there's someone else there. And during one sleep, you're turned over to hizik as chaveidoi or his property called a big doi. What's pshat? There's some amount of negligence. Since you knew that person and his things are there, you should have taken precautions prior to going to sleep. You know yourself. You're a tosser in your sleep. Sleep further away. When you went to sleep, there was no one and nothing around you. And after you're sleeping, someone else came and laid next to you. So the guy that came later, he's considered the muad. If he was damaged by the one that was sleeping, the one that was sleeping is pater. The other way around is not true. The guy that came second, if he even during his sleep damages the guy that was there first, will be chayav. But the first guy, there's no amount of negligence. And that's even for nezek. That Reuven is already sleeping. Shimon puts a keli over there. He puts Levi's keli, and Reuven in the sleep breaks Levi's keli. The sleeper Reuven is pater. Adrabah, Shimon will be chayiv. Further, halacha yud beis. Person goes on the roof, and the person knew that with a regular wind he might fall down, and that's exactly what happened. And when he fell down, he was mazik, v'hizik. So the din is chayiv ba'arba devarim, because as we mentioned, the Rambam writes in halacha yud aleph, if you're mamish and oinus, you'll be exempt. But for a very small amount of negligence, the act of damage was not done with kavanah. You were blown by a wind. You're going to be chayiv for the 4, but you'll be pater from the boishes, because boishes, more than any of the other 5, you have to have mischaven. And there was no mischaven. Nafal the ruach she'ena mitzuya. Now listen to this, guys. Another layer. You'll be chayiv ben nezek. It's amazing. In other words, going on the roof, you're adamot la'olam. Even though it was beruach she'ena mitzuya, but it's still considered some amount of negligence. Don't go on the roof. However, that will only be mechayiv you for nezek. So really, we have 3 tiers, 3 layers, as it will become clear. Right? The amount of intent for boishes is the highest. The amount of intent needed for nezek is the least. And then the other 3 in between, that will be a great example. But you went to the roof and you were blown beruach she'ena mitzuya. Not only are you not chayiv for boishes, that's already like in the category such of almost oinus, cut of la'oinus, that you're not going to be chayiv. Yeah, sure.
What's the difference between, let's say, in the roof case, with ruach she'ena mitzuya, versus when he goes to sleep and then someone puts it next to you? Because
I see a difference. You're going to the roof. When I go to sleep and there's nothing around me. No. When I go to sleep, Danny, and there's nothing around me.
Right. So you're not aware.
No. There's nothing around me. I took the precautions because I made sure prior to going to sleep that during my sleep I can't damage. Don't go to a roof. You know when you go to a roof, there's a possibility. It makes a difference.
A hurricane comes and blows you off. That's whatever.
A hurricane blow you off the ground is like going to sleep and nothing is around you. That's a different mushroom.
But isn't that real?
No, but you went to the roof. You went to the roof. You went to a place. There is a certain thing you go to the roof.
Okay.
It's a roof without a railing. If there would be a railing, even the ruach matsuya, I'm saying stop. Okay. Now, the im this hapech. When a person is falling down, if you ever had that experience, it happens very quick. But sometimes you see that your path of flight is going to land on someone else. So you maneuver yourself, you understand, while you're falling. That's called nisapeh. And it happened to be that your maneuverability, or I'll tell you more than that. In other words, you don't want to hit the ground. You don't want to hit the ground. But your chaver, basically, has chalent, he's a good cushion. That's nisapeh. Then chayiv bakoil. And that's even in boishes. Now, 1 second. You didn't have kavanah to a shame. So the Rambam is using this to make a nuance that to be chayiv in boishes, you have to have kavanah lahazik. You don't have to have kavanah levayish. If you had kavanah lahazik, you'll be chayiv for bush. Shkolam is chavan lahazik, afa pishlen is chavan lavayish, then it'll be chayiv in boishes. Now, halach yugim. Shnayim shechavlu be'echad ka'achaz. 2 people injured at the same time, a third. They're both chayiv. Let me tell you what that means, guys. Everyone is chayiv. U'mishalshin b'neim. Everyone pays half of the damage. The word to be mishalesh doesn't mean a third. It means you divide it amongst them. If 4 people did it, they'll make it into quarters. Then the kudah is that not that if the nezik is evaluated by $100, each one is chayiv $100. Together, they have to put together. Together, you put the money together. So what did we say? That for busha, you have to have kavanah. Let me add what the Rambam is saying, Yakir. And the other guy will pay all of the bushes. In other words, for the things that you can divide, each one will pay half. But now that we introduced for bushes, you have to have kavanah. If one guy had no kavanah lahazik, even when there was enough negligence to be chai for the other adba, for boishes, it's not like I'm only paying for half. If he's exempt, the victim will only get half. That you don't say. If one is not paying, the other is going to pay for all. Halacha yudal. So there wasn't 10, but you got the wrong person. So the din is noisen la gadol the mei bashte shel katan. That's amazing. You had kavanah. And kavanah is essential. Since the kavanah was levayish cotton, that's the most money you have to pay. The schav and levayish also added, which has lesser shame. Ubiyash ben chayrin, the same idea. Noisen ben chayrin, the main bashta shel. So there was kavanah lahazik, or there was kavanah levayish. But it's going to be limited to whom? Halacha tezvav, hoyso even munachas lebecheikoin. So you had this stone that was placed in your bosom. Ben shalei hikir ba ma'olam. All you did was you stood up, Ba'amad, and V'nafla, and V'hizika. So what do we say over here, guys? Chayev b'nezek bilvad, upater ma'abad devarim, because it's like an oinus. And again, nezek, let me use the words that we use, guys. By nezek, you're chayev even for oinus. Even though we made a nuance in an oinus, there's a level of oinus, you went to sleep, that's already not even that. We consider that an oinus. So you chayv only a nezik. If you wanted to throw a stone for 2 amas, this is about the distance. And you ended up throwing it for 4, and at the end of the 4 amat mark, there was someone there, and you damaged the person. Oy shehizik, oy shehizik kishu yoshan, chayv benezik bulvad, upater ma'abad devarim. Amazing how getting when you inserted the energy to go 2 and it went 4, it's mamash considered an eins. But again, what became clear is that even though I remember the words, you're chai for even by eins, chai for eins, but there has to be some amount of negligence. In the case, no negligence, you won't be chai. Halacha tazai. Hamazik es chaveri bekavana, for which you chai, right? All of the 4. B'chol makim. Then chayev achamisha devarim. What do I mean by b'chol makim? The Rambam explains that afilu nichnas l'reshus chaveroi shaloi b'reshusai. The nizak, guys, the nizak entered the reshus of the mazik without permission of the mazik, and the mazik was mazik him b'kavana chayev. Are you kidding? You went into my property? Yeah. She'af al pi sheyesh lo reshus lo yitziyoi. Right? Hababa b'achteres. They more have the reshus to kill you, but you're not above machteres. You came in there, you can see right away, you didn't come to steal. There's no chashash of that. I have the right to kick you out, but guys, how the person who entered Shaloi B'Rishus, let's say, bumped into the Balabais and got damaged, that's something else. That's called a complete accident. Harei Balabais Potter. That's Danny, like someone putting something after I went to sleep. I didn't know you're going to be here. I know I go from here to there. I don't have to. The im who's like boy balabais adrab if the balabas. So the nizak went in Shaloi B'Rishus. The balabai is bumped into him by accident. If the balabas got damaged, the guy that walked in there is chai. Now hoy shneim B'Rishus or shneim Shaloi B'Rishus. Husku shneim zebozen. Then it's going to be shneim peturim. That's very important. When do we say that you're chayiv for nezek, even shaloi b'kavana? That's only if there was 0 rishus. Shneim b'rishus gavaldik. Halacha yudzay. Hamavakeya eitzim b'rishus adam. You're chopping wood in the public domain, and when you're chopping wood, the parach eitz mehen. The Torah gives us as an example: a piece of wood took flight, the hizik, and it flew into a rishus hayachid, and it did damage there. Now you have reshus to be mevakeya b'reshus harabim, or better, guys. It's your reshus hayachid. You're doing work in your own yard. The hizik b'reshus harabim, and this little piece of wood that went flying damaged b'reshus harabim, b'reshus hayachid, and it flew into someone else's reshus hayachid. He walked into a carpentry office. Bein b'rishus, bein shaloi b'rishus. The nitzah b'ka'as v'tipcholoi al panav, and the guy, the carpenter, is doing what he's doing, and a piece of wood flew and hurt you. B'chol elu chayiv b'arbad dvarim, and you patim in aboishes. In other words, in all of these cases, there was some amount of negligence, and not a some amount. The only thing you'll be exempt from is boishes, for where you have to have kavanah lahaz. You know what this is called in the lashon of Chazal, guys? This is called karav l'meis, which is why you're going to be chayiv to pay even not only for nezek, but for nezek, tzad, ripui, and shavs. Halacha yutches. Geshem sha'im.
I'm sorry, you didn't mention rishus harabim to rishus harabim. Because that would be a situation where, right?
Shenem p'turim. Correct.
Because if you're chopping wood in the rishus harabim, you have permission to be there. I'm walking in the rishus harabim. I have permission to be there. Why would you not be chayav? Why does it only have to be different rishuyas?
Could be. You're not allowed to do it.
You're not allowed to do it.
So in other words, why does he have to write that the hizik b'reshus hayachid?
Right.
No, it's mashma from over here that b'reshus harabim.
Rishus harabim to rishus harabim is different than from one rishus to the other. I don't know.
Okay. Halacha yutches. Kshem sha'oimdim lamisa kach oimdim l'nezakim. And we had this guys before that oimdim lamisa means that if Reuven God forbid kills Shimon, even though he had kavanah, what did he use? And we have to evaluate if the item that was used to murder was an item that a shaykh to kill is Shimon. And if not, he's not going to be chayiv the capital punishment. The same as when it comes to damages, as the Rambam explains case. He struck his fellow with a little pebble. It's so little that normally even inserting the koyach of your haka'ah, it should not have damage. Oy bekesam shall eitz cotton, a little wooden splinter. What happened is like a freak accident. Here also, guys, hareza potter. By the fact that Torah says he used an even, a stone, not a little pebble, or an egrev, a fist. And look at the irony. Until now, it came out that for you to be chayiv boishes, you need the most. Here it's the other Abba. Since you had kavana lahazik, abel chayiv boishes l'bad. Shafilu rakak begufay shel chaveiroi. You're chayiv b'boishes. And by the way, rakak begufay shel chaveiroi, and not the rakak the bigodov. That's a lesser amount of busha. And then I think even by boishes, it's only if there was like a physical contact over here. Okay, point is that you had kavana to do a maisa. You did that maisa. That maisa caused busha. That's why you chayiv to pay. Because other than the boishes, it will make a difference. And not only that, ideally you bring the instrument that was used. We've done all of. Yeah, Pashut Basin has to look at it. And if the item that was used to strike your fellow was lost, and the guy that did the damage is claiming, I don't know how it happened. So here the dim will be Yeshava hanechbol v'yitol. No, it's normally, guys, why do we say However, why don't we say it over here, Yakir? You know why? Because everyone is admitting that Reuven struck Shimon. That's a big difference. If there's a question whether I was mazik you or not, of course, and if anyone has to take a rabbinic oath, is the one that's not going to have to pay. Here it's different. Reuven hit Shimon. He's moida to that. The debate is only was that item kadela hazak or not. Here, Yeshava hanechbal Taka has to take an oath. V'yitoil, as we will learn, Chevra in Pedekei. Okay, and this is all when the Edom don't have no one has the item. And the final halacha in this chapter, halacha Yutes, habarzel, this oimed is never needed for metal. Ein loy oimed. Why? Afilu machat ketana, the smallest of needles. Ru'oyehi lahamis. The ein sarach lemel lahazik. That's the thing about metal. And therefore, now another hazoydik even. After you threw the stone is going on a certain projection path. After you threw it, someone else stuck his head into the path. Of course not boishes. That's a great example of Yoshan then. You're not even chayv nezek. It's after you went to sleep, someone went next to you. That's the same concept. Because it says in Parsha Shoiftim, that umatza esre'eyu prat lamamtzias atzmai. Someone caused themselves to be stricken. No, it's the re'eyu was there. If when I did my action, the re'eyu wasn't there, later the re'eyu came in there, as we had a few exceptions, that not even nezek you'll be chayav for. So Bekitzer, in conclusion, it's very important. Yes, I'm talking to myself. People remember Adam Mortal Oilam, you're always responsible. There's really three levels. There's really three. The most, you have to have Kavanah Lahazik at least to be Chayiv and Boishes. There has to be some amount of negligence for you to be Chayiv in the other three. And if not, you won't be Chayiv, but you'll be Chayiv in Nezek. But even in Nezek, whether you're going to call this an Oinus Gadol, whatever the Lashon of Chazal is, there are certain scenarios where, like in the last case in the Pedic, I threw something. Someone else stuck his head out there. We don't say, well, it was an oinus, but I'm not even chayv for nezek. Very good. Chavah, moving on to today's second chapter. Pedek Beis is going to make it clear, as we had before, that when we began, that there's 5 chiyuvim of injuries, right? Nezek, tzar, ripui, shavas, and boishes, they are not interdependent. Befedish not. And sometimes, based on the rules that we had in Pedek Aleph, you'll be chayiv some of the 5, one of the 5. One thing has nothing to do with the other. It doesn't bother me that you only chayiv this one or not the other one. And we're going to have to now go through more of the formulas, because the only formula that the Rambam explained was how to evaluate nezek, damages, ke'eved hanim kebashuk. But when it comes to tsar, think about it. How will you even evaluate that? So the Rambam will address in this chapter, if I'm not mistaken, the tsar, ripoy, and sheves, and boishes, we're going to leave for today's third chapter.
What about today? There's no slave market. How would you evaluate that?
Hey, that's a good big question over here. There's no slave market. It's not about we're going to see later. We're going to learn about the sheves. Unemployment, that's another cheshbon.
Right.
Kasha. Okay, have a
I think
paying.
don't they look at potential earnings nowadays?
No, potential earnings has to do with Shevis. That's the whole point. Unemployment, that's a whole different thing. And the one thing you're going to see, guys, is that you won't pay twice for the same thing. That doesn't exist, and it makes it very difficult because even when it comes to tsar, we're going to see already the overlap between nezek and tzar. As we'll learn through this, we'll chop the issue we're trying to address. Halacha Peidik Sheni has 20 halachas, beginning with halacha al. Right, so we had in the first chapter, sometimes you're not chayiv all 5. Let's speak about a case where you are chayiv. You injured your colleague, you got to pay all the 5. B'shalom chamish. Hizikoi nezek she'ein by ella arba'a. Because it was not a pure negligence, it was not a pure oinus, but there was no kavana lahazik, you're not chayiv in voishes, then you pay only 4. It's shaykh that I'm right, shloisha mishalom shloisha. Shnayim mishalom shnayim. Echad mishalom echad. And you know what? The Rambam is going to give examples for each one for the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Halacha 2. Ketzer. Kotas yodoi ragloi by etzba mehem. Reuven cut off Shimon's hand, foot, or toe, or finger. Oy shesimas eino, he blinded his eye. Then mishalom chamisha. He has to pay for the damage. He has to pay for the pain. He has to pay for the ripui, right? For the medical treatment. He has to pay for the loss of employment, for the unemployment. And for the embarrassment. Reuven hit Shimon's hand and it got swollen, but it's a type of injury that the swelling will go down. Or al eina, he hit him on his eye, and umarda means it rebelled. It means it got displaced. Right now, temporarily the person cannot see, but it will get healed. This is gavaldik. Mishalim arba'am. You know why? Well, there's no nezek here. Why is there no nezek? Because in a slave market, I just want to point out Danny's question. Danny's question is a big question. How do you do it today? Yeah, it's that in other areas, person doesn't want to get damaged for this guy might not be able to work for a month. In a slave market, it made no difference. In the bigger picture, where you're buying a slave, if the guy has an injury that that's nothing. The swelling will go down. And you don't pay any nezek. You have to pay for tzar, for the Shavas and Boishes. Now, he called a Rosh Tzava. If a person Reuven hit Shimon on the head and the head got swollen, he has to pay shloisha. What's the shloisha? You don't have to pay nezek, and you don't pay for Shavas. A swollen hand does not allow me to do needlework. My fingers are swollen. A swollen cup doesn't stop you from doing any work. So, in other words, you won't have any Shavas because of that. You'll pay tzar. You'll pay for the ripa, you'll pay for the boishes. In other words, boishes is when people can see the injury. So I want to stand corrected. Even boishes, very good. Yeah, correct. Torah only pays for physical things. Even tsar is from a strike. Even the boishes is from a strike. It's from a visible strike. So if someone hit his fellow b'makim that's covered with clothing, so then nira. He called Birkon. He hit him on his knees or he hit him on his back. You don't even pay for boishes. Shalom shnayim tzarveri boy.
Rabbi, isn't busha continuous in some cases?
So we're going to see. So let's finish unpackaging all this. Let's see. He hit him with this kerchief, or being that it's not considered painful. It's not uncomfortable. There's a certain amount that, okay, the only thing is chayiv is in boishes. Gewaldig. Halachi gimel. Kevoi, he burnt him b'shapud with a spit or with a nail on his nails. B'makim she'ena oisa chabura. And v'loy ma'akid mulacha. Now, no nezek. There's no ripui. And there's no shevis. So then you only pay for tsar. Right? When they torture people, they want to do it in a way where no one can know that they were being tortured. So you do pay for tsar. Yishko sam. Oisach sam. And because of this potion, because of this drug, the shina mare oiroi, you cause the other person's skin to change colors. Mishalom loy ripui bilvad, ache yachzer mareu kamay shahaya, which is amazing. You don't pay for boishes. Asori b'cheder. If you lock someone up in a room, what did you cause? You caused that guy that he cannot go to work. The guy is at trauma, that he was stuck in a room. The Torah doesn't monetize that. Doesn't mean that you're not guilty for that. Halacha dal.
What is it locking the guy in the room?
Clear. Asoroi b'cheder. Amazing. Okay, so whoever's using the chayena, they don't have it.
Oh, it's
Okay.
not here.
Okay, Danny, it's very, say it. Halacha dal. Hamegaleach sa'ar roish chaveroi. If you cut someone else's hair off, that's called boishes. You pay for shame, but only for shame because it grows back. You put these potions that burn through the hair, or if you burn the person, the hair will never grow back. So here we go for all of you baldies, myself included, all of us. So how much? What happened over here? The Rambam writes: if you caused your fellow to lose their hair, you have to pay for all of the 5. I love it. The nezek, and there was a guy in the slave market is worth less money. The tsar, the tsar is because you did it by burning. That was done in a painful way. The ripui, the sheves uboishes. So he explains. So that's the tsar. And not only that, guys, if you have tsar, you have to have ripui. It goes together. You have to begin to appreciate over here. The person has pain, they're going to go get medical treatment. Question is, what's the unemployment if you lost your hair? He says, of course, you lost a potential job. That one of the things that we can make to do a living is to dance at other people's simchas. And part of the chacham of dancing is shaking your head and moving your hair. And you can't do that part of entertainment.
And get paid to do that.
And get paid to do that, or get paid not to do that. Get out of here. If without the hair, you're not bothered.
Seems like the Rambam was against the Chassidish number 2 haircuts here.
It's a bush attack. Halacha Hine lo madatom. And that goes another, even in his tooth. I feel he pulled 1 tooth. How many teeth do we have, guys? 36 teeth or 34 teeth? Ain't enough. Chai bakoil. She'i efsher shelo yechle piv sha'achas. Afa pi sha'hashed ein lo refuah. So you can argue, I got it. You're going to pay for the nezek. You're going to pay for the tsar. But what's the ripui? It's a done deal. This is before. Now you have implants because psara shinayim tzarich l'refuah. When someone's tooth is knocked out, their gums need to have ointment. There is psara refuah.
No, but what's the sheves for losing a tooth?
I think whenever a person is in pain, sheves, as we'll see, we're going to have a whole thing about monetizing. The rest of the chapter, what's the formula? The amount of time that I was unable to work. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean that every time. You have to know what the Rambam is going to give you examples. It depends what you're doing, but we'll get there. It's shaykh. Anything in which a person has tsar, there's definitely potential bittul malach. How can you work? Depends what you work. Halacha avos. Now, afilu chisrei kasa adam or b'saroi. The amount of flesh that was wounded is so little. Chai b'chamisha devarim. A little sliver of skin, of flesh. Because when you damage someone else's skin, that never goes back to the way it was. What you have is a tzalekes. Tzalekes is a scar tissue. And he ripped his, he also caused for his flesh to be cut open. You can argue, so what? No, all chamish. Again, how do you monetize this in a slave market? Mustama was monetized. Oh, it's a swollen that they didn't care about because it's chayzer libriyasi. Anything that leaves a scar gives the slave less value. Halacha zayin. Hamavis es chaveru. Scare your friend. Afal pisha cholam and apachad. Very good, Danny. Beferish. That's the halacha. In other words, you caused. Forget about where I said sar. Let's speak about.
It says here it's because of grumma.
Okay.
It says in the notes.
Okay, but it wasn't direct. Hadeza pratam medina yadam chayv medina shemayim. V'hu shaloi nagaboy. Ela kegoyin shetzak ma'achayrav. He shouted behind him. Or he like boo. He appeared in the dark and he frightened him. But guys, you're going to see in a moment that there's another factor. The other factor here is that the victim could have removed himself. We'll get to that in a moment. He shouted in his ear and he became deaf. But now it's not about just physical contact. If he grabbed him, which does not allow his friend to move his ear away, he frightened him. But during the frightening, there was a contact, like he grabbed his clothing. Then he's going to be chay b'tashlumim. In other words, there's a certain thing of a person knowing they can run away. And I want to tell you, running away, me being able to run away, that knowledge itself gives me the ability to be less frightened, even if I'm not going to run away. When a person feels trapped, it makes the feeling of what's happening a lot more serious. Like I have no control.
What about the case where you put somebody in a room, he's trapped and he can't get away? Just wondering.
But 1 second, but what damage happened to him, Kevin? The Rambam right, halacha gimel, very good. So the Rambam wrote over there that you have to pay Shabbos. Other than unemployment, what happened to him? He's not worth less in a slave market. No. The answer is tsar. So that's the point. So we said good that the trader doesn't monetize these types of emotions. It doesn't mean it's not there. There has to be some physical connection. Again, even by busha, we'll see there has to be a certain physical connection. Halacha ches. Yiroli sha'anechbol sha'amad. The injured party says that nischarashti, I became deaf. That's a great thing. I became blind. How do you know it's true? I know today you can measure it. Like, what do you even do? The guy and the I can't see, I can't hear. Again, the Rambam goes out of the Seder for some reason. First deaf, then blind, then deaf. Ain't an emma. We don't believe it. The Rambam was a doctor. And maybe Yarim, maybe he's a fapid, that's in Yiddish, in Ungarish Yiddish. The Rambam says, at some point later, you'll give him money, but you have to wait a long time. I wonder how it works, Taka. People get the insurance claims, and it's only because they made that $5 million because they became blind. They'll probably fake it for a couple of years. You have to wait a long time to chop him because people are able to do that. All right, that's what it is. Okay, after all of the above, now until the end of the chapter, there has to be a formula, beginning with Kamahu Atzar. Says the Rambam Hakoil Lefi Hanizak. It depends on the nature of the nizak. It depends on the nature of the injured party. Meaning, Yesh Adam Shurach v'Anoig b'Yosef. People are very spoiled, and on top of that, people are very wealthy. And it's such a person. If a person can pay his way out of pain, the mashal that Chazal give is that if a person was sentenced by the king to lose a hand for a crime that he committed, but if you want, you pay money, they'll amputate your hand, giving you a drug. It should be painless. And if you can't afford that, they'll make it painful. That's a good example of how you monetize the pain. So it's the nezek, you're losing your hand. Nezek, you're paying because how much is he worth less than the slave market? You're not going to pay twice for that. But that which he's losing, which you're paying for, on top of that, if that would have been able to happen without paying, but you have to pay money. Now, everyone would pay another amount of money. If someone is very wealthy and they don't tolerate paying, they'll pay a lot more money. So then if you did it to them, you have to pay them more tzad. And on top of that, he's not going to waste money for something that he doesn't need. If Okay, sometimes the Rambam is giving another example, that he will undergo something, even though it's going to bring him a lot of tzad to make one zuz. So for him, a lot of tzad is only worth one zuz. So it's not cookie cutter number. It's to do with the nature of the injured party. Now, halacha yud, Kate said, and the ikir here is that you already paid him for nezek. You don't pay for the same thing twice. So the vart is, boy, someone who got his finger cut off, kama adam kozeh, roitze litoin, bein lektoiloi ever ze basayif, oi lektoiloi basam. Sam means in a way that's painless or less painful. It's not how much would you pay not to lose the limb. You can't make that cheshbon, Yakir, because even if a guy would have paid $1 million not to lose the limb, you're paying for that when you paid for nezek. And for nezek, he's not getting $1 million. In the slave market, it's different numbers. They don't care if you're wealthy, you're a slave now. For the tsar, it's going to make a difference. And that is what the mazik has to pay. So that's tsar, that's nezek, and tsar. The next, now we're going into Shevis. And again, the Rambam again to say that. What did we have before in the beginning, Yakir? It was tsar, nezek. It was nezek, tsar, ripui. Anyway, now Shevis. Ketzad, mishalom hashevis, unemployment. If the damage is not of permanent loss, it was illness, which meant that the guy was bedbound. The hand got swollen, and he's not even bedbound, but it's something that on its own will come back for Sefer Lachshar, that day by day. Guys, we have to explain this. So important. Also for our kinderlach, they learned this in yeshiva just to make it clear. There's two things over here, Yakir. Svei Zajac. First of all, in this case, this guy has an employment. Some guy is earning $100,000 a year. Some guy is earning $20,000 a year. Some guy is earning $1 million a year. How much this guy, based on what he's doing, he can't work today. How much money is he losing from not working today? But that's not the correct formula. So first of all, it's relative to your job. Some people are earning more money, so Shevis will be a bigger payment. Their unemployment, if they get paid by day, guy works at a job and they get paid $1,000 a day. Shevis is not $1,000. The word is kapoyo batal shaloisem malacha. Let me tell you what that means. Many people, not all people, some people are workaholics. Most people like taking every now and then a day off. Everyone understands that when you get a day off, you're not going to get paid. People who need the money. If a person is earning $1,000 a day, and you tell him, I'm going to give you a little bit of money for you not to go to work. How much money do you have to give for them to be batal b'malachta? Now, to say that a guy is going to say, you have to give me $1,000, it's not emes. Because the guy, I know he gets paid $1,000 a day, but not working, for most people, has some value. He gets to rest. He's willing to give up some of the $1,000. Now, I would say most people will give up a little bit. Like every case is a case. That's called kipoyel batal sh'oisem malach. So it's a personalized cheshbon, but it's not. Are you kidding? I get paid every day $1,000. I couldn't work. Give me $1,000. No, but you at least had the advantage that you got to relax.
Brilliant.
So that's the cheshbon. Now, how to make it is not so pashut, but these are the rules. Now, there's another challenge over here. If you lost a limb permanently, don't forget, you already paid for the demei yodai, which is nezek. Now, let's say a guy was a diamond polisher. So he was working with his hands. When he now, God forbid, got his hand cut off, you know how much he's worth less in the slave market? A lot of money less. But that is not part of unemployment. That's because he had a mumcha with his hands. And therefore, as a slave, he can do a job that's very expensive. And now that you're paying for nezek, you already paid for that unemployment. We don't want for you to get paid twice for the same thing. It's not fair. So you can't cheshbon how much was he earning and now the unemployment. That's included already in the nezek. So you have to make a new cheshbon. What's the new cheshbon, Yakir? He used to work with his hands. Now that he lost his hands, he's never working with his hands. You cover that with the nezek. As a unhanded person, what can he do? He can be a shomer, he can be a guard. Now that's a whole different number. You have to make that new cheshbon. Roin oyser kilo shomer kshuyim. Roin kamus chashem kshuyim b'chol yoyim. That's how much he gets paid for not being able to work in a new type of job. Now, by the way, here also it's the money kapayil bottle. It's always kapayil bottle. Don't forget that, because still the guy is not working. You never pay a guy full numbers when he doesn't work because he's not working. Because you have to have feet. You don't hire a guy to watch your cucumbers if he has no feet, because you're going to watch me steal your cucumbers. It's even less. Or sima means both eyes. So what can he do already? No, he can grind. He can be like a chamoy. Now, you pay for the loss of the eyes, you pay that in the nezek. Remember that. But we never allow a scenario where you're going to have to be chayv to pay twice for the same thing. Chamisha devarim, but once for each one. Halacha yud beis. Hikas chaverei wasnoi. He physically hit him on his ear. Oh yeah, chazay, like we learned. He grabbed him. The talk about osnei v'chevshoi. Noisem le'demei kuloi. Sharei ein roi l'malacha klal. Very interesting. How making a person deaf have absolutely no value.
We learned it before. You have no way to communicate with them.
Actually, he brings in the bottom over here. I'm learning Rabbi Steinsaltz's Rambam. He brings from the Shulchan Aruch that a person who is a professional doesn't lose his value when he becomes deaf. Many professions.
Like Albert is a hairdresser.
Very good. We have a here in the shul. You have a profession. You're working with your hands. You have to know. Kafiyah zmanu amakim. You have to know exactly where we're at. Halacha yugim.
Does it mean he was grabbing him when he blew the horn? Because the last case, he had a choice to get away.
So either he did write this Kavan, either physical, too late to get away, or he grabbed him and he blew it into his ear. He writes that the fetch. Halacha yugim.
So why they have stealing rights?
Because in the Rambam's times, if a person does not have a profession, if you're not a professional, so you go like over here, you want to get work, you make yourself available to work. No one is going to hire a guy that's deaf, because they don't know what you want. You can't communicate with them. Halach Yud Gimel. Simas einoi v'lo yamadu. You didn't make this about enough. Simas einoi. You had this unique oimid of nezek guys and the oimid of bittul malacha, unique to the fact that now you became blinded. But before that happened, he did another act of Kabbalah. He cut off his hand, v'lo yamadu. Katas ragli v'lo yamadu. And then at the end, the last thing was a halacha yud beis. He made him deaf. Now for deaf, there's one. He's not roy lamalacha klal. Hoyel v'lo yamadu b'chol nezek v'nezek. Noisamay demei kulai. However, if in between each act of Kabbalah, there was a assessment by Beis Din, Amadu l'chol nezek v'nezek, and then after he became deaf again, now you make another assessment. So there's a suffix in the Gemara how this is collected. Ein goyvim mimenu ela demei kulei bulvad, which is obviously a lesser amount of money, but the imtafas hanizak nezek kol eva ve'evet and the demei kulei, then ein mitzia in the yodai. As is always the rule, whenever there's a boy in the Gemara, and it's a suffix, so here we say ha'moitzi mechaveru olavarei in both directions. Halacha yudal. Ketzad misharin haripoy. What's the formula for a ripoy? So oindim kama yomim yichya zeh mechoylisa. Let me say by heart what we're doing here, which is very important. This is very good halacha. This is for tikkun ha'olam. Sometimes people heal very quick. Sometimes people heal very slow. When people are motivated not to get better, which is sometimes you live in a society where people pay you not to work, it'll take you a lot longer to heal. So that we want to avoid that. So what we do is we call in doctors and we make a general umdana. Someone with this type of Zets, this type of illness, how much money do they need for medical treatment? And that sum total is paid up front. And if this guy, now he's motivated, think about it, to get better. If he gets better quicker, he keeps the rest of the money. But the maila is that when people don't want to get better, they don't get better. It's such a good tickleness. So, kama yomam yichya zemechayliza, and v'kamu tzarech, v'noisen loy miyad, v'ein mechayvin oiser little dvar yom b'yoymay. And the dover says that takana lamazik.
Why don't we look at his background, how wealthy he is, how delicate he is, like in the other case?
Well, for Ripui, you were talking about medical treatment. A guy has a bone broken over here. Your mamash see. We have now in the shul 2 people. If you want to get better, people heal quicker. The person is getting paid for unemployment. They're getting paid for the medical treatment. Why would they get better in a month if they can get better in 2 months? And they'll never get better. And b'chein hasheves, all same concept. That how much unemployment are you going to have from such a wound? So they have to make a general. Doctors say that with this type of wound, for 1 month you're out of work, and that money you pay right away. However, we made the kepoil bottle, but that you pay up front. But anyway, now if this guy never, we don't go back to the mazik. And by the way, it's 2-way street. That the at least you're motivating people to be healthy. You know what? I think most people will get healthy quicker. They already got the money for unemployment. They don't have to give it back. They got the money for the ripui. He's motivated to need less medical treatment than to pocket the money. Now, halacha says that you pay ripui and shevis all upfront, straight. That's only b'shiratza hamazik, because we said this is for the benefit of the mazik. But if the mazik says, I'll pay every day what's needed for that day. Then what happens if the nizik tells the mazik, I know how to heal myself, right? But that's my chachma. I went to the east. I can poke needles on my body and get better by myself. You have to pay me. You hit me in the west. You pay me for the medical bills. The fact that I will heal myself and I won't spend a penny, it's none of your business. The din is ein shaymin loy. Why? Because the mazik can claim you're going to attempt to heal yourself. You'll never get healed. And everyone, when they look at you limping, they're going to blame me. I'm takachayim, but I want to pay you for a normal treatment. Or like we learned in Halacha Yudalad, basically I called the nurse al yedei bezdin, and that's it. Now, what happens if the mazik is a doctor? And he says, I damaged you. Medical treatment, I'll treat you for free. I have a doctor that owes me a favor, and he'll be marapi you b'chinam. Also, ein shoymin loy. Yuvaldik. Why ein shoymin loy? Because the nizak can claim, I'm going to submit myself to you. You're going to be my doctor. You're my monster. What do you mean? You hit me and you're going to heal me? I don't want to deal with you. He has the right to say that. And the schar is also important, because whenever a person works for out schar, asya, the mugging, that's the words of the Gemara, mugging shavia. A doctor that heals for free, heals for nothing, is worth nothing. The rabbi got sick with a heart attack. He insisted paying all of the Hasidim that came over with him, and he quoted that Chazal. Halacha Yutes. No assessment was made from the outset for whatever reason. He was in the case where that was the option. The mazik says he paid him day by day. And what happens if the wound becomes infectious? It got infected. So the wound opened after it began to heal. It's once that's the case. Once the mazik opted out from that takana, he can lose because sometimes there's complications that come up later. Now, then chayav l'rapoisai. He's chayav to be merapehim. And I know you're thinking it doesn't fit, right? If olu tzmachim shaloi machmas amaka. So the way we go out is that I take a look at the Maggid Mishnah. The Maggid Mishnah says that the girsa would be eina chayav l'rapoisai and ve'eina noisen l'demei shiftoi. Another detail. If the guy was not following what the doctor said, then also eina chayav l'rapoisai. And final halacha echav kishapoiskin based on alamazik. In the option number one, which is takana lamazik, goyven mimenu hakol miyad ve'ein koyven loizman klal. No, it's when a person has a loan. That's the rule. If you remember that, if I owe you money, you come to collect. Beis Din will give me 30 days. That's the rule. Before Beis Din gets involved. When it comes to hezek, even this detail, where he has to pay from the outset for the good of the mazik, all of the demei ripui and all of the demei shabbos, they don't give him any time. But the im boishes bavadnes chayev, boishes means that the guy who got ashamed is not out of pocket. So therefore, and just to know the general zman l'shalom is 30 days. I'm sorry.
Going back to you, Ted, the indirect cause of a second infection. Sometimes when the body is weak, you do get other infections that are not caused by it, but they're caused because you're in a weak state of,
Let's use the words that Danny mentioned before. Grama ben azak and aspata. In other words, it's not a chayved in a shamayim. We're not denying what you're saying, but it's not considered direct. But it's also the whole halacha yutes is shaloi pasakima, because if pasakima, if you follow the normal procedure. They make an assessment earlier on. If something unusual happened that was not part of the posek, you won't have to pay. Even if it didn't even heal you. Okay, Perek Shlishi is mahemshech because what we went through, the Perek Aleph was Nezek. In Perek Sheni, we went through the other three. What is the only one that we did not yet give the formula is Boishis. And that's going to be Perek Shlishi, has 11 halachas. It's today's shortest chapter. And it's going to tell you the formula of how to assess the demei of shame, of embarrassment, the demei boishes. It depends on the character of the person who is mivayish, right? The one who caused the embarrassment, the mazik, and on the character of the nizak, here in our case, of the one who became embarrassed, of the misbayish. Remember again when we learned Tuman Tada, right? Mitame. Mivayish is the one, the causer, and mizbayish also mistame. It's a chidik and it's a soft there also. Getting ashamed, becoming ashamed from a cotton is a lot more embarrassing than to become embarrassed. Some circles, getting a patch from the Rebbe is not a badge of honor. Bishoy, Bishoy, Zahakal, if you get ashamed from a cow, from a cotton, then the feeling of embarrassment is heightened, is maru. Now, the state of the person who got embarrassed, you embarrass someone who is unclothed, the din is potter. It's amazing. In other words, that's a big rule. Anyone who is in a place where they are not uncomfortable or they're not the poil, they're walking around unclothed. We're not saying God forbid to embarrass them. It's a whole different type of place you're in. A feeling for busha, you don't have the busha that you have to pay. Now, a person can be unclothed against their will. When they wear simple one long jalaba and the wind blew the jalaba up. Of course, because this guy did not choose to be in that state. However, even here, there's already a less, because he's already in an ashamed state, in a ashamed state. If a person is going into the river and they pick up the hem of their jalabas for it not to get wet, or you're already going out of the nog, and at that time, you lifted their clothing more. That's the mashal he's using. Ubishay, you'll be chayiv. But here again, it's going to be a lesser amount of money. Hamavayish es hayoshan. What's the word of hayoshan, guys? The victim is then asleep, and while you are sleeping, you don't feel shame, but you're going to wake up, and when you wake up, you will notice the state you're in. You're going to feel the shame then. That's why you're chayiv b'boishes. But if you didn't wake up, and therefore here there's a doubt. It's when you did the act of busha, the guy was alive. He was sleeping. But Poyel, he never felt it. But the im tafsu hayorshim ein mitzin miyadai, like any other suffix that is unresolved. Person is a mentally incompetent person. You're potter. Hamavayish es acheresh. Even though b'derech klal, guys, what's the din of a cheresh? Is a din of a shoita. You know what? Not for shame. How beautiful. It's even when halachically the cheresh is considered underdeveloped, he's not like a shoita. You'll be chayiv. Hamavayish es ager. These are people. Thank God, societies are better today. But a person who's already feeling very humbled, that's the pshat. People that are in a state of being very humbled, which makes them really very connected to God. But in that state, they don't feel shame as much as others. Or an eved, you'll still be chayiv. Here again, normally in other dinei Torah, right, we put together chedesh shaita v'katan. The din will be if he experiences shame, you'll be chayiv, even though the victim is a katan. But if he's so young, then potter. And nevertheless, if we call Makim, going back to the rule, making the shame embarrassing, katan, it's less. Here we go back down. I'm happy, yeah. So you shame someone verbally. Not on his body. In other words, okay, that's a good way of wording it. To reaffirm that emotional distress per se is not something that the Torah is mechayiv you to pay. However, both the Tsar Dani and the Boishes, if it's connected, there has to be a Maisa Begufay. The Maisa Begufay, which brings about Tsar, the Maisa Begufay that brings about. So you think about most people get ashamed with Dvarim. It's a terrible thing. Right? Is Mavayish B'Dvarim. Don't minimize it. We're speaking about getting penalized money in a Beis Din. It's not people, some societies, if you're not going to be punished, people are going to do it. So we're not condoning it in any way, shape, or form. Then as we'll see in a moment. And maybe I'll pick Kabbalah because the emes is that in the Ruch, the Eibishter created the world with Dibur. This is the whole theme that we have at the end of the Alter Rebbe. At the end, Mamash from the Alter Rebbe speaking about the Chetzonius of Shabbos, the Pnimius of Shabbos. We have this also in Halacha, right, doing Malacha. The Dabru Davar is only different Kabbalah. But we are careful on that. Because the more Ruchni is, the more connected to God we become, by Hashem, the word of God creates the world. The more godlike we become, then Dibur and Maisa are like the same. So maybe a Talmud Chacham who's living in a world of Kedusha, for him, words is Maisa. Anyways, Kvanisek Adin, Shkol, Amavaish Talmud Chacham, Afilu B'Dvarim. Koinsen Oisoi, V'goyvim Menu Mishkal, like I listen to this, Chamisha Ushloisham Dinar Min Hazahav, and to make clear, V'hu Mishkal Tisha Suloim Pachos Reviyah, and I want you to know, guys, this is 336 grams of gold. And I made the cheshbon when I was learning this prior to giving the class. This is almost $21,000 in Shvat Tavshin Pei Gimel. Hamavayish Talmud Chacham b'dvarim, that's a lot of money. The Kabbalah Yodenu shekoyvin knaseh anywhere. Bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutz la'aretz, which is a chiddush, because normally the din is that dayanei chutz la'aretz don't have reshus to be done dinei knasses. But they were not the ones that were done this. No, it's when the Chachamim and Chazal established that for Talmud Chacham Avaisha b'dvarim, we are giving the penalty, they had the right to do it. The Beis Din b'chutz la'aretz are only the shluchim of the Beis Din that do have a right, because it's not a custom made how much over here. So if it's hakoil fi hamavayish hamizbayish dayani chutz la'aretz, when it comes to dinei knossos, how they don't have the right, it was already pre-established to fix them out. And Allah chavav ma'asim hoyu etzleinu tamid b'kach b'sfar. That what that Rambam is pointing out, Spain. That's not that it's Yisrael, and people were fined in a Beis Din 21K. The yesh tamid chachamim show you meiklem. And you know what the Rambam writes? It's taka praiseworthy of them. No Elohim. Other Talmidei Chachamim, they are meichel a little bit. They give a 10% discount. The yesher tevei voice b'shor b'nei. Aval hadayanim hoyu oimnim, but always that the yanim have to tell to them vayesh chayev atalitin loy litrozov. Halach zayin apalpi shabavayesh shor ha'am bidvarim patim and atashlumin. As we mentioned, because the rule is if it's not connected to a maisa big gufay, you won't be chayev. Oven gadolhu the ain of micharef from megadol la'am umavaishan ella, someone who's called by the Torah a Rasha and a Shaitan. So Amru Chachamim Arishayim that should call hamalbin. I know the word malbin means making white. Malbin is one of the physical consequences that happens when a person gets ashamed. Ironically, they do also become red, but the emphasis is not on the making red, but after the person becomes red, all of the blood is drained, or sometimes lechatchila. And that is like a ritzicha, because you're taking their blood away. And call Yisrael tzaddikim. I'm call them tzaddikim. In other words, adam kosher. People find every yid. Now, if someone has to be dealt with, sometimes the way when people did not pay money, there was a minig Yisrael. At a certain point, don't forget, but they don't have that much. They don't have that much power. So what they did is that after the Kaddish by Yishtabach, before Baruch Hu, they figured out that's when most people are in shul, because many people come late. Many people after Shemon Esrei, they're running to go work. So they would announce before Baruch Hu, Reuven owes money to Shimon. Now that was Malbim in Barabim, but that's not Adam Kosher. In other words, that's what if the Beis Din decided that something has to be done Barabim, then you're allowed to do it. Halachaches yesh arkois rabois. Different types of blows. Sheyesh behem bizui v'tzar ma'at. There is the problem with the blow is not the tsar; it's about the shame, and b'chlal there's no nezek. So the Rambam is giving you different types of blows. How much busha does it cause? You see, these things you needed to have the earlier chachamim, because how would you come to with a number? They know how to come to a number. Ukfar paskolam chachamim damim ksuvim v'chol hamakach havei hakol mehen. Since they already established the number, Mishalom Oisam Aman HaKotzav, and they are all in the category of Knas. Oisam Aman HaKotzav, who this money that we're talking about is the Demei of the Tsar, of the Boishes, of the Ripui, and the Sheves, Bein Tzarech L'Refuah v'Sheves Bein L'Tzarech Kezel Mishalom. It covers all of this. Kamu Mishalem. So if you kick your fellow with your foot, for that you pay 5 salayim. Everything has a price, like a bar with the drinks. Hiko ba'arku basoi. If you butt in with your knee, you pay 3 salayim, not 5. It's considered a less degrading, and therefore there's less busha. Ki beitz etzba oisav. If you gather your fingers, kamoy oiged aguda, by gathering them into a bundle, that in English it's called you made a fist, and biko biyadik shiaguda, and you hit him while you have your hand in a fist position. For that you pay 13 salayim. Talk as chavei b'chapa. If you slap him with your hand, for that you pay 1 selah. Story alpanav. That's if you slap him on his body. If you slap him in his face, you pay 5 selah. Story b'achar yada. If you slap him with the other side of your hand, that's terrible shame. You pay 100 selah. Clearly you see it's not about the tsar, it's about the busha. If he twisted his ear, he pulled his hair, or if he spit on him. But again, it has to be a ma'aseh begufay. So it's not enough for the spittle to hit his garments, but if you get like bifsara, it touched his flesh, or you should have it talis in the olive, you remove the guy's talis, or you should put it you remove the woman's hair covering, mishalim meyasela. That's the highest amount. Nothing like Mavaish Talmud Chacham. I got that, but that's a lot, 100 sel.
This is all under the category of ablations.
Yes.
Didn't we say before that there is no ablations for spitting?
No, a big god of Danny.
Spitting on his clothing. This is spitting on the actual person.
Yeah. The chazeh hu mishalim al kol ma'aser u ma'aser. Now it accumulates. Like you're going in, you're drinking, you're having many drinks. For everyone, you pay another number. Ketzah. Could go shabbat b'chaveiroi, ba'arba b'itois. Gavaldik. Afilu zu achar zu. Mishalim esrim selam. Story al panav shtei stirois. 50-50. You pay 100 selam v'chein b'sha'ara.
And this is irrespective of whether there's people that see it or not. So it could be just you and him.
Yeah, that's very important. I want to repeat this. He didn't hear. Yeah, so Danny is pointing out that the fact that this is not because it was in public. By the Malbim Pnei Chavere Barabim, which is Devarim, for which unless a Talmud Chacham, you're not chayiv at all, there's Taka Barabim. But all of this is the busha that you felt during that aggression. Halacha Yud. Kol elu.
Sorry, do you need witnesses?
That's what Danny is saying. You need witnesses always, because whenever one party claims it never happened, but let's say they admit. And even if you need to have witnesses, it wasn't because it was done in front of the witnesses. A half of dinner of kesef u'shloishim dinarim. And as we always know that you have, remember, Tsuri and Medini, did they have 7% of copper, 1% silver? He wants to clarify what type of coinage we're using. Really, it's not pure silver. Which was what they would use in 100 selah. And the final halacha Yud Aleph, now it gets a little bit hard. All of the above, this list of numbers, 13 selah, 5 selah, 50 selah, that's all been mechubad. When you have a mechubadik person involved, a distinguished person is involved. Well, if there's a person that to begin with is a mavuzah, and the Eina Makpid, he's not particular about this, then there has to be a personalized assessment. And then Rambam gives a general approach. There are such things that they are ku'arim, they are base. Sometimes ku'ar means ugly. It means that they're emotionally, they're base. And the Eina Sheina Makpid al-Bashtan. Or sometimes they don't do it stam, they do it because they think that's the way they're going to get a prusa of money. And once you're dealing with that type of person, then it's a whole different assessment. And Rambam is not saying you don't pay anything, but then there has to be